ya tanga to chibin ring ka to ba samba jang ngo to samba de chibi che de la lu to se wa taba de la je ne la bo ba da je ba taba de la je ne la bo ta la ten chi ta bi ko do ba na na chi ta bi ko do ba ni wo de ni cha je te wu de da chu ji je la ba lo bi chu du ji song yin se wo de na ma wo de jang shi bi sa ji je ne wo ta ring ga zo de sa ji je ba de mo do ma ra.
Again, we are looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, specifically the section on training the mind in the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So when we look at that specific section, Lama Tsongkhapa provides an outline, and we find that there are 4 categories in the outline. First, the mental training. Second, the measure of the determination to be free. Third, dispelling misconceptions. And fourth is ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. So in that 4th category, which is ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation, there's a further outline, and we find that there are 2 categories under that final heading. So the 2 categories are the kind of life needed in order to halt cyclic existence, or the kind of basis needed. And then the 2nd category is the kind of path one needs to cultivate in order to halt cyclic existence, or the path needed to achieve liberation. So these are the 2 categories. And within that section on the kind of path needed to cultivate in order to halt cyclic existence, we find that there's a very short explanation of the highest higher training in ethics. And in that section on the highest higher training in ethics, when we look at the 4 interwoven commentaries, and we look at Jayan Sheba's specific commentary on that section, we find that he provides us with 8 categories to explain the section on the highest higher training in ethics that's just condensed or abbreviated in this last category. So there are 8 categories in Jayan Sheba's outline, and Rinpoche said that we're now on category number 8. So that's where we're going to begin. Just give me 1 minute. I'll provide you with the English page number. Page. Dunjudunga. 75. J, okay, 275. Suchin Daba, okay. 275, okay. NGK, let's go. Okay, so we're going to be on page 347 in the English, 275 in the Tibetan, 8 lines or so down. And Zurbi Shine Neu Zurbi. Okay, so it's right near the bottom, the Nusurba.
Jebatan Mayura, Jebatel what and then Janji Visaji what Jebatel meet at Agandu. Ne Nyamuji Nyabu Shedat Dambas, Nyamuji Nyabu Shedat Damba. Nyamuji Shed Damba, Shedat Damba. Nigan Nyamuji Nyabu Shedat Damba.
Shedat Damba? Sana? Damba?
Nyamuji Nyabu Shedat Nyamugi Nyabu Sunguares.
Okay.
Shedat Damba. Hotel Jaji Besaji Jeding. Shed Shebas, Dambaje, Soso Sheba, Nebaje, Nyamutu Amudu Sombaje, Nyamujumba, Pawung Haba Jiba. What is it? Lamrim Sandua.
And the J, J,
J, J.
Okay, the J, Yanger Surana. I know the Temambo, Gongame.
Tombo Shed Sheba, Shed Sheba.
Okay.
Shed Sheba. Neba Susu Sheba. Shed Sheba, Yamu Nebu Sheba. Susu Shebasna, the Chagan Yabu Shedang Yabu Susu Sheba. Susu Sheba. And then Yamutu Amudu Nyamutu Moba Yanangodu to Chudon to Modu to the Nyamu Batres. To Angodu to dance. Nyamu Chomba. Pau Habas. Pau Habaje.
Sumba Yanger Sunan, Sumba
Sumba Tere.
Sumba Gare.
Sumba Shesheba Shirachiva. 네 녀모도 응어도 주로와 녀모 bom바데 추도 좀 응어도 주 녀모 bom바데레스 what the was.
Okay. Root of preliminary. Okay. So when we look at the 8 categories, the number 8, there's a Jayan Sheba names it as that one needs to. I was asking Rinpoche, he used a word I didn't know the meaning of, and I think it's applying an antidote very strongly to the afflictions. And I think that's why in the English here they've chosen this word struggle. Struggle with the afflictions. So I think that the meaning of that, when I look at the Tibetan, means to really very strongly apply an antidote, meaning struggling with the afflictions means to very strongly apply an antidote or apply an opponent to the afflictions. It's not, the word is very strong, not mildly. It needs to be done in a hard way. And that's why this word struggle, I believe, is used in the translation committee, because it's very similar to very hard struggle, applying an antidote very fiercely. So that's kind of the name of the heading of this number 8. And there's 4 categories that Jayan Sheba provides. And once those 4 categories are complete, then this section on the medium scope is complete. So the first category is understanding the antidote to the afflictions. And then there are the number 2 are the individual antidotes to the afflictions. Number 3 is the abandoning afflictions is the primary route to the Dharma, or is the preliminary route. I think the word preliminary and route is there. So it's the preliminary route to the Dharma. And one who abandons the afflictions is a hero or a conqueror. And these are the 4 categories that are used. So let me just see. So once those are finished, this is finished, and I believe that's it. Digsung Rinpoche.
다지 지금은 제시바 동부들와 동부들로 사지 조직도 사지 조 동부들 조례세 조는 다 동부대 네 대들 추진사도 어떤 동부들을 해와를 제바 네 조는 동부 제시바들 조지 조는 동부들은 레스.
That's good, Rinpoche. So there are 8 categories. 8 categories. The 8th category has 4 categories. And now the first of the 4 categories has 6 categories. Okay, Digsum.
다시 제시바들 조구나네 동부들은 레스다 동부 대들 추진 다바시바야 후수비시네.
That's so?
다다 나나 녀모바담 터번도 코나 개체대 녀무다 마타나 추진 다바모 다자나 녀몽고 녀바다 자와네 봉유 띵게제다 싫어질라바 모유 네 코아덴도 청구바 송바다 임베 하시바다르 녀모바 응어셈바실라스 녀모바 응어셈바실라다다기 녀미다 다다다 제 녀모비 녀미 녀모봉페 녀모비 녀미다 다다다 제이 페 녀모봉페 산네 잠바다 시진 수수데스 다 수수줄로 녀모 요구도에 거와 요구도에 네 잠바다 시진 수수거레스 수수데 녀모가 고모몰라 야다야도
That's
동부 대구스 네 수수줄로 녀모 가르 시치와 요구도에 네 뇌차 시치와 요구도 콩도 시치 도모 시치와 요구도 뇌차 시치와 요구도나 네 모두 보고 동대야 네 콩도 시치와 이나 샴빈 동대야 네 도모 시치와 이나 텐데 동대야 어디냐부터 그걸 송된사래
That's the Kanga Chip Tambo.
어디 동부 콩르다다 도무도
Kanga.
녀몽고 뭐 가야다야도 동대구 대양 녀모바 가야로랑기 줄라 녀기 쇼마타도 녀모 수수탄 줄 제마타도 teladate네 타고 사 달라테 자ten 타고 대다 매바스 녀무질 정어도 녀물 자테네 냐부마테 바지 제주바이나 안에 때매바 담보 손자나 타도렌스 녀무 타도렌바이나 안에 주미지 수일데바 손네스 주미지 수일데바 손네 타다매바 콤바지도 로송오소 어디바 담보레 야
Okay, Kanga Tambo.
what the tambre
Okay, lesson. Okay, so the first of the 6 is as follows. Further, with regard to keeping a pure ethical discipline in this way, Nisarpa said, right now, only this internal struggle with the afflictions is important. If you do not struggle with the afflictions, you will not achieve a pure ethical discipline, in which case you will not attain the concentration and wisdom that respectively suppress and uproot the afflictions. Hence, as the Buddha says, you will have to wander continually through cyclic existence. Therefore, as I have explained before, once you have identified the afflictions, reflected on their faults and the benefits of separating from them, and planted the spies of mindfulness and vigilance, you must repeatedly fend off whatever affliction raises its head. Further, you must see any affliction as an enemy and attack it as soon as it arises in your mind. Otherwise, as if you acquiesce when it first appears and then nurture it with improper thoughts, you will have no way to defeat it, and it will conquer you in the end. So here, it is necessary to apply an antidote immediately when an affliction rises. And there are opponents or specific opponents or antidotes for each of the afflictions. And when we look at the 3 poisons, for instance, if, for instance, attachment arises, then one applies the antidote of attachment, which is meditation on ugliness. If one has aversion or hatred that arises, then meditation upon love serves as the antidote. If one has ignorance that arises, then meditation upon dependent origination becomes the antidote to that. So whatever affliction arises, one needs to be immediately apply an antidote and get rid of it because of reflecting on the faults of the afflictions and the benefits of separating oneself from them. So this is all contained within number 1 of the first of the 4 in category number 8.
Tetaran bebe maduna yang jum tuba mela duba chula remetiba tabushi guji tula remetiba tab majate ne wate kashu goreta tanga su nyomu ba ka nebeten duma tuba ne jul cheondu ne ko kedi 마두바 줄 제바 이나야 녀모 비상로데 출러 좀 제바 다와 살은 좀 제바 다고 마템바 제고 템바 메바 제고레스 기상로도 수가 돌러 좀 제바 나제 템바 제고레스 대단 베비 마두나야 줌 튜바 메라 도바 출러 좀 제바 다부시 구이제스 출러 좀 제바 다 템바요 마르보다 녀모 비상로데 와테 출러 좀 제바 다부지 템바 메바 구그레스 기 상로도 수가로 돌러 좀 제바 tar 템바 제고레스 콩 가바요 와르스나 고물루지 셰딘레스
레서
sen chudan sadan sen nyomubi sanlu du ngalo salare muteba tabudan chulare muteba tabu medeba chegures sen chudan sadan ane gi sanlu de ane dolare muteba tabu gures remuteba tar riba jetes tena nyomu jenla tambu ne chudes tena dollar muteba 사든 출라르면 잡았다 되니가 나네 아니 녀모제 산로도 그걸로 출라르면 잡았다 살라르면 잡았다 야슈레스 담은 추대 춘드 나라 타마라 추슈 산루데 둘르리메트다부 그레스 춘드 나라 타마라스 셰송바타데스 야
이 박자단자
시딘로 시딘
이 하고도 얘네 리모 이 박자단자 게 박자 젬보
리모트 살리미트바도 출리미트바다 마템바로다
레서
녀모비 산루도 마템바고 그레스 에드zembo
예 박자단
둘르리미트바다부데 게 산루 둘르리미트바도 템바고 그레스
레서
워드 송도사 응고블루 시딘 코스
the shitting logo
시딘 워드 시딘 terwa 시딘레 다 시딘 워드 줄루는 레시 자산디로
Okay. So number 2 is as follows. Even if you fail to arrest the afflictions through such efforts, you must not allow them to linger, but must immediately disperse them, as though they were drawings in water. Do not let them be like drawings in stone, but with regard to religious matters, you should do the opposite. As Nagarjuna's friendly letter says, know that the mind can be like a drawing made in water, in earth, or in stone. When afflictions arise, it is best to have the first. When aspiring to religion, the last is best. So we must not let the afflictions that arise become firm within our continuum. So we don't want them to stabilize. So when we were to draw something in sand or draw something in the water, it's drawn, but it's not stable. It's something that's arisen, but it goes away very quickly. But if it's something that's etched into stone, then it's not something that goes away very quickly. So we want those afflictions that arise to be like the water drawing, to be like the sand drawing, to arise and go away. But we want our religious practice to be like the etching in stone, that when that religious practice arises, it remains stable, it remains firm. So we're trying to make that practice within our continuum, those virtuous deeds, firm like they're etched in stone, and we're trying to make our afflictions when they arise very unstable, like a drawing in the water. So that's what is meant by the point made by Lama Tsongkhapa, and then Lama Tsongkhapa shows where the source of this is in Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. Diksun.
다들 쉐주 레장스 dala dagi shenshashin kandu zone yutedes de sha kondu la so nyemo ba to so ngalo kan zone an to so nyeba den tegures yutede naba tendi nyemo naba tendi nyemo ba nyemo joje ma to sos ne kasugure ta shunju lendela dagi shenshashin nyamul kandu zone jawa thoma meba tati bato nipe ngasu dunga nyunggoya de wate nyamu chwe jebares wate nyamul kandu zone nyamu nyabu tena tegures nyamula nyabu tena yu jeba tatabi nyamu ba nyoje matu so tatabi yu jeba nyabu jen yu mares wate sanmu butang gores nyamun joje matoso dan se jutan da ngoje jan lais ne da me seba inanda ngoje ba ina auzeres ne naba kun de nyamu bidalan leju mares she son so wat ni bare drugno ni bare
the Kanga Nipa Rodrudam
yeah.
And this also is included with number 2, and it's a quote from Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. Or here it says, this is said in the engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds as well. We should be obsessed with these afflictions. Resenting them, we do battle, while making exception only for those afflictions that are destroyers of other afflictions. So since beginningless time, we've had these afflictions, and we should apply antidotes. When it says we do battle, we should apply antidotes, provide opponents to these afflictions that we've had since beginningless time, unless they are specific afflictions that destroy afflictions. And then it says, better that I be burnt or killed, or that my head be cut off, then I should ever bow down before my enemies, the afflictions. So Rinpoche is saying, like, being killed isn't so bad compared to bowing down to the afflictions, which are the true enemies, because of the consequences, the actual consequences of the latter. So these are all contained within number 2.
다 송바드는 막 기시 부중 와서 되는 말 해용하래.
And then we begin
되는 말 어떤 장아집에 어디 대송도 녀무 주마집에 제장 녀무라 녀부터 봐 이나 녀무 둘레 하브레스. 어때 제르머지 대송도 서다. 안에 기시 부중 신내장 기시 부중 신내장 나는 녀무 다지네야 마타양 우네 수지시 송바 Podui sembe, desonzana, mela dozongos, what the Gijibujun, Yamu Bidaji Nena, ne Mataya, Wone, Suzi Shezomba, Pachun Son in Bade, Pachun Somba de Kadam Gishin, Podui Sene, what the Jeba in the Yamudu Nagres, Sondos, what the Somba, Ted Madamudua.
lesson. Number 3. Also, Geshe Pochonwa said, when I am buried under the afflictions, I can still clench my teeth beneath them. Upon hearing that, Pochonwa said, Botawa stated, if you do this, you will instantly stop them. So if you look at it like no matter what, even if you're buried under the afflictions, you will still move forward against them. If you have this attitude, then you will instantly get rid of them. So one should adopt the attitude like this, that no matter what, even if you are buried by them, you still have hope, you still have this desire to provide opponents. So this is number 3, and there's not, Rinpoche said, much there, it's just this part.
진에 야전 너야요 말이스 탐에 저우데 네 유진의 코너바 이나 그 쇼를 진에 조보 뭐지네 진영와요 알스 탐에 비다던 용고 잔다고 말이스 너무 비다 사지 마바수수소나 네 야자 용고 말이스 사두 바인 마이 론도 순제저스 나네가 어디에 말에 탐에 비다네 내지 뛰어 탐에 비가수다 내지 뛰어 유진도 존네 또 녀바나 하 고동와다스 녀모바니 만다스 녀모바 봉투바이나야자 녀모지야요 말레스 모두데 녀모줄라 내지 자와네 넌투나 유진도 로야 메라 살로장 네 몽고原장 다자 녀모바 좀발라 점바 메빌렘바테스 점바 메빌렘 전주 마소마이 조선은 녀모포마도르마도 전주도 녀부템바이는 녀모포토그레스 어때 콩도 쉐주 정도 쉐주래 타메도 유도 쇼야네스 타메비다도 유네 코템바이나야 유젠다도 내신 용존네 네바테네 테네 시두기 녀모다주다던 다마인스 녀모다 타지모토나 야자체나요 말 타메비다우든다고 말레스 녀모 싫어 미기본스 녀모데 싫어 미 돈이도 싫어 미 녀부기 봉고레스 다이레세 간도 로아죠 네 다이레세 간도 로아죠 간도 네네 다는 Chenmo, Tamatic, that inside Daniel Chenmo, Condon, Yomobudat, Jumba in Ayaja, Maris, Tamabidao, Eugene the paper in Ayaja, Eugene Dalton, Sino, Tenin Dagumaris, Condon, Dan Chenmo, Logen Dala, Jumba Mavilla, not 20 members in Sotarematu, Yomumatu, but 20 members, but 20 Zana, Yomopuntu res. So
number 4, when you root ordinary enemies, they can take over another country, seize power, and then return again to challenge you. The afflictions are not like this. Once you expel them completely from your mind, there is no other country to which they can retreat, nor can they return. However, we fail to overcome the afflictions because we lack joyous perseverance. Engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, ordinary enemies expelled from a country settle in other countries and take them over. Recouping their strength, they then return. The afflictions are enemies of a different sort. The eye of wisdom eradicates the various afflictions. Once cleared from my mind, where can they go? From where can they regroup and counterattack? Of weak mind, I have no joyous perseverance at all. So here, one must immediately, this is number 4, and the points are that one must immediately apply antidotes, but it's necessary to have joyous perseverance in order to do so, because we would create joyous perseverance by knowing that the afflictions are our enemies, but they are not like ordinary enemies that can retreat, regroup, go get some more new friends, and then come back and bother us again. Once the afflictions are overcome, they're overcome for good, and they cannot come back again because they are stamped out completely. And the way that one does that is by the wisdom realizing emptiness. It says, the eye of wisdom eradicates the various afflictions. Once cleared from my mind, where can they go? So the eye of wisdom clears the afflictions. The wisdom realizing emptiness clears the afflictions from one's mind. So if they're no longer present, then it's not possible for them to arise again because their presence has been eradicated completely. So that's what's meant by this. It's necessary to have this joyous perseverance in order to generate this wisdom, in order to apply these antidotes to the afflictions. So that is number 4. And also just anybody, when I don't know who's doing it, but with clicking on the cell phone, you can hear it on the tape, and it's distracting me when Rinpoche's talking. So I don't know who's using the phone, but please stop. Thank you.
Talking about the new Rinpoche now, what the new doa get Toshimo Chayores, then do that. New Rinpoche, new Nuki, Shunta na, Lelu Majawa, Mönla. Nyebe dosa nyomo jul chegdo na ne lelu meba je ya lane kasugure lelu nyebe den do gures nyebe do manu na ne ya lane ne mre pya chuba bya ne lama da e dan la soan de ba ne telami ne ne chu de ba wote 예단 그 추운데 봐야요. 추운데 봤더니 제바이나 안 내진 로송os 어떤 제바이나 너무 지는 그래서 누군도스 누군도스다. 라르 담비 셴내장 nendusabbata 그주바장지 장 내진 로송데스 라르 담비드네 대사 바한도 체 대바이나 야 너무 그 지도라지면도 도사베바탄스 그주바서 그스다 근도서 인등원들이야 너무 비싸지만도 너네들이 인등원들 그이다면도 원들이 제나 너무 돈대지요서
맞아
예전도 손데 그런 너무도 타바따라 송os
맞아
그런 너무도 타바를 송os 다 그런 너무 녀부터 좋던데 되고 있어다
Lesso.
Was
Ale, Lesso, Seldu, Dembosha. Okay, Lesso. Interesting. So the Ngapa. Okay, so this is number 5. So we have Nyugurumba said, when an affliction appears, do not be indolent, but counter it immediately with its remedy. If you cannot overcome it, stop thinking about it, set up a mandala and other offerings, offer these to the Guru and the chosen deities and make supplications to them to overcome it. Focusing on the affliction, recite the mantra of wrathful deities. Doing these things will cause the affliction to disappear. And then we have a quote from Geshe Lharampa. Says, even changing the place where you sit or merely turning your head will make the afflictions disappear. So the advice is given here that if you're having trouble with an affliction, just moving the place that you're sitting or moving where you are as a note, it might be in relation to the thing that's causing your affliction to arise. Moving the place that you are or turning your head from one side to the other can just change your way of thinking altogether and make, it says, the afflictions disappear. And then here it says, it is said that he struggled with his afflictions. So you have to go back to what that struggle word means in the Tibetan. And it means that vigorously applied an antidote. So when we read it as a translator's note, it looks like Rinpoche really had a hard time with afflictions. But what this really is saying in the Tibetan is that he fiercely applied antidotes to the afflictions. That this struggle means that he really provided opponents very strongly to his afflictions. So that's what is meant here, because Rinpoche just explained it, that the antidote was very strongly applied. But reading it in the English, it looks like Glangri Tamba may have had a problem with afflictions. But what it really says is that he provided strong opponents to his afflictions. Tiksan.
That Rubat Gumba in the Tibet. They are Gumba in
Lasso.
Yensen to Rang Senla Shara Shawale, Jenji Yusumbatar Shebashi, Onsu Das, and Onsu Das. That Yensen Kundu Susu Yumuchigwe, Wachikun Sharashia, what the Nebatil Habu Maris, two Chambayang, and then Yamachi Lanto Tejan, they la sense on Bushunga, and soon and the case. What about the Trubati Ruba?
Lessa. The Kanga?
Yeah.
Then the Sa Nyon.
That your motor that Jetta Pon, what the
Dumba.
Susheba.
Okay, the Drupa.
Trubat Sandro.
Okay,
That's about the truth. Then the Susheba.
Okay, so then this is number 6, and then that completes the first category, which is the kind of the general application of antidotes, and then the next category we'll get into the specific applications. But this is number 6. Such disappearance of the afflictions as Langri Tamba describes occurs when you do as Gombawa said. What is there to do except to stand guard over your mind day and night? Furthermore, no matter how many times the great elder met someone in a day, he would always ask, "Meanwhile, have you a good mind?" Meaning, is your mind crowded with afflictions? Is your mind at this moment applying antidotes to the afflictions? So that's what's meant by good mind. Or do you have a positive mind? So a positive mind, we go back as a translator's note, is one that struggles with his afflictions. So we didn't know, without a commentary, we wouldn't understand that. A good mind is one struggling with afflictions. And we would never think of it in that way, just as a note. But you see how this all connects. And that's the end of number 6. Less so.
That nearby Susheba Leonro.
This shade is so
Nearby Susheba, and then George was such a true digging do. Nearby Susheba Telemobe, and then such a true dinner, true non tombatere, Yamuta that Jetapon, Yamuta that Jetapon, Kanamato, Chela, Jawa Kashins, Yamujan Taji, Ten Shebane, Temu Yembeti, Nebo, Tende Modugula, Kuan Judula, Kebashade, De la Gunane, and Tawangala Suba, Tangan Taji Jan, Manung was about the Sushiba Trugan on Tambatere, Yamuta Jetapon, Takan de Teremde, and then the Cha Kondo Shedan, Temu Tosun Terendo, Tosun on Tombatumu the Legodoa, Tamukinebo, and then Tamukinebo, Kanamato, Chela, Tawakashin, Kanamato, Tamutu, Denzin Punkabrota, Trakashins, Yamujan Gentaji Tenshebes, Denzin Tege, and then Jushebala Tenden, Yamubatan, and then Yamubatanji Tension, 네 denzen ge jue sheba la ten nyomu che yongre ne ji de gai de nai de chi de la suba tangji wo de yongre tangji ge ju zu de denzen de dio ares yongla juning na tuma mariba wo de ge jue sheba la ten ni ba ju je ge le ane wo de ge den yongla juning ga yonggo wo de ju zu de wo de denzen de se da denzen yen taji ji ten sheba ne temu yinbe te kona ni la mariba ta lende la mu mariba ni jina ne tanda de te kona ni la mu mariba rendua tende la jin toma mariba de te kona ni la mu mariba tu te kona ni la mu mariba ma tu lende la mu bi mariba yo mare tende la jin toma mariba la te kona ni la mu mariba mi chagore wo dem yo dere
The Yanjer Surinam, the chap Yanjer Surinam, the Dendel Yanjer.
Nyamuba Taji, Tenshiban, Temu Yembe, Ti never tended Motukula, Koa Judula Kibashaos, Koa Judula, Koala Kuziba, the Gandaba to Kunju de Bani, and the Koala Tree Jende, Godentala Deni, what the Sul Kibajigores, the Koala Kuju Denzires. Tuma mariba denziro ne quality ne quality de la tabata landeni mare what the sul keba je guru son dere
the tikona ni mariba dendel yan la juni cha the Yanjer Surinam
ta den da se go nyamo je na male ji to la tale shon lu yu ton je da nan di yu tu shin ne nanju ba da nu go ba shis nyamo je na nyamo ba ji nyamo ba Desha control so je junse jega nashi dunga dusre ane nyemo bata jega nashi dunga la so ba te tangji ju zu denzin dres denzin tomo mariba tela tene nyemo bata jega nashi dunga so sama yong gres uma ju bale
that's you're right
nyemo ju na malun ji su la tale shon lu yu tong ju danen di yu tu shene nenju ba dan go ba shes
Lasso. Then they Dain Sunsan, the Dendel Yenla Juni, the chop gare, the Cheron, the Yimbi chop lapson, the thing.
Dende Yenla Juni, Toma Mariba Yoro, Toma Mariba de la Tokonanila Mariba Mato, Lendila Mariba Yomares, Toma Mariba Ina, Tokonanila Mariba Chaus.
Lasso. Okay, there.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we get into the individual afflictions, so the individual applications, and we begin actually with ignorance. When we look at we can look at them in terms of the 6 root afflictions, but we could also, when we look at the 3 poisons, for instance, we have attachment, hatred, and ignorance. So we're going to begin with ignorance here, because ignorance is really what causes cyclic existence. It is the grasping at true establishment that causes cyclic existence. When we look at benighted ignorance, when we look at the 12 links of dependent origination, the first of the 12 links is ignorance. And that ignorance that we're talking about there, when we categorize ignorance, there's ignorance of the nature of reality and ignorance of the law of cause and effect, or ignorance of karma and its results. But when we speak of this first link, we're specifically talking about the ignorance which is the ignorance of the nature of reality. The grasping at true establishment is the ignorance which causes cyclic existence, which is the root of cyclic existence. When we look at Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, the commentary on the root wisdom text, he states that perceiving that all faults and all afflictions flow from the idea of the transitory composite, and knowing that its focus is the very self, this self is what the yogi will disprove. So here it's saying all faults and all afflictions come from the view of the transitory collection, which is the grasping at true establishment, is seeing the I as being inherently existent. So if all faults come from that, we can see that this first link, ignorance, is speaking of the grasping at true establishment, and then the second link is karma. So we first have ignorance and then engage in karma. So those 2 types of ignorance are always categorized that way, but this ignorance is specifically ignorance of the nature of reality. It says, the way to eliminate the afflictions is as follows, beginning with the 6 root afflictions. Among the great misdeeds, ignorance is the most tenacious and serves as the basis of all other afflictions. Therefore, as a remedy for ignorance, you should meditate a great deal on dependent arising, and become knowledgeable about the progression and cessation of cyclic existence. If you have habitually cultivated this, none of the bad views, such as the 5 afflicted views, will occur. So here it says about the progression and cessation of cyclic existence. That's talking about the cause and effect relationship, which we find within the 4 Noble Truths. The first 2 Noble Truths are the truth of suffering and the truth of origin. And this shows how one is bound to cyclic existence, how cyclic existence progresses. And then we find the last 2 Noble Truths, the truth of cessation and the truth of path. And this shows how one is freed from cyclic existence. This shows the cessation of cyclic existence. So once you become knowledgeable about the progression and cessation of cyclic existence, which means knowledgeable about the 4 Noble Truths, how cyclic existence is caused and how cyclic existence is ended, then you are able to uproot that which causes it altogether, and that's the grasping at true establishment. Because again, perceiving that all faults and all afflictions flow from the idea of the transitory composite, that's just the view of the transitory collection, and knowing that its focus is the very self. This self is what the yogi will disprove, because that grasping at self, true establishment, causes everything else to occur. That's why it is dealt with first. That's why it's the first among the 12 links of dependent origination, and that ignorance of the nature of reality is its own thing. Ignorance of karma and its results is completely separate and doesn't categorically fall underneath that ignorance of the nature of reality. That's specifically the view of the transitory collection.
추는 대만 마루가 시에서나 네 대진이 냐분 주고 다바 드마이메 시에서나 전지를 냐분 주고 어떤다 버스
So it is grasping at the phenomena as being truly established that is the root of cyclic existence. One thing I forgot before, cyclic existence is the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, suffering of change, pervasive compounded suffering. The grasping at true establishment is what creates that. It is the understanding or the view that things are not truly established, that phenomena is not truly established, that serves as an antidote to the grasping at true establishment, which is the root of cyclic existence. Just like the antidote to the grasping at a rope as being a snake in a dark room, mistaking a rope for a snake, is understanding that it's a rope. The antidote for the misapprehension of reality is the proper apprehension of reality. The misapprehension being that phenomena is truly established. The correct apprehension is that it is not truly established. Like knowing that a rope is a rope gets rid of the idea that it's a snake. Knowing that something's not truly established gets rid of the idea of establishment. Deeksung.
Tom ngas dama rubanzi ti ki kwal ku de tadala min hiji me ba khadule de son yore tom ngas dala shin ju da de shin ngala chaje ba su jin shen da ro me ba ye rola hiji ju su jin shen da
nge lo zin sa
kwal ku de min hiji ju wores.
So we find at the beginning of the entrance to the middle way, where Chandrakirti, it's within the first few stanzas, where he says, beings think I first and cling to self. They think mine and are attached to things. It says, then this they helplessly turn like buckets on a water wheel, and to compassion for such beings I bow down. So first there's this idea of I, then there's this idea of mine, and it says, and this attachment occurs. And it says, because of this, we helplessly turn like buckets on a water wheel. And Chandrakirti says, I have compassion for such beings. It says, and to compassion for such beings, I bow down. So the compassion, that kind of compassion is compassion, just as a translator's note, is compassion that understands the nature of reality. So that's it's that ultimate compassion, named as ultimate compassion. Isn't compassion, but it's the compassion that has it for them because of understanding emptiness. So that's just as a translator.
Papa
Papa Timuyimba.
Papa the example.
Okay.
Example.
So in the middle of the 12 links of dependent origination, we find the representation of the three poisons with the pig, the chicken, and the rooster and the snake. And the pig is the Papa. Papa Timu. And then the pig represents the ignorance in the center circle. So we'll take a short break and we will be right back. Tearing Sheda Silverguru.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tanga to the neighbor timba. That the mug neighbor, that neighbor Kundu neighbor.
Lessa.
Kundu neighbor, then the Tangadua. The Shinika doing it the Shin, Chenrezig, Chashamanika doing it with his control at the doing it the Shin, Gaza Saba now. You be done, she down in this, and the Gaza Sabbath to Nazu Gawa Sabbath to Kangalo, and Jung can't do what the Kundu radio is a Kundu, and Gaza Jonji de la Luta to Kundu Nido, Kundu to Luta Ni. Kundu go the Kundu to Luta Jena Luta do yours, Luta the Gaza Tamazon res, Kundu gay. 네 거완종스야도 콘들 거알 도와줘야 누가 주요 누가 총총 당야 버스 콘들 그산종스야도 네 거알 도와지로 다 도와 신의 당지 도와도 그래 거알 도와줘야 누가 요래 콘들게 거알 도와줘야 누가 총총 당야 그래스
오케이
그산종스야도 Contra Gazanjumate, Gaza Mebazu Mares, and the Carresana, Gazal Dawajin Nubate, Chung Tanjavadilla, Gazan Jones Laguares.
It gets us home.
Omanju, Omadu, Mumarase, Zobakat, Lud, Sanji Tomani was or the Bash Sombaji twice you heard.
Okay. So, hostility, now we get to number 2, or the second among the 6, hostility or anger, hatred, is the enemy who brings suffering both in this and in future lives, and who destroys the accumulated roots of virtue. As engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, there is no sin like hatred. Therefore, never give hostility an opportunity to make effort to be patient. If hostility does arise, you will be very Hold on, let me try this. If hostility does not arise, you will be very happy even in this lifetime. Engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, those who persistently defeat anger will be happy in this and other lives. So the control dan luta, the Yanjar Suralan control dan luta.
Gets Lotani Gazanjung.
Okay.
And control dan Lotani Gazanjung Sudamares.
Less so.
Lotagi what the Gazan in the Mabazon is. Gaza Junjag is. Control the Gaza Goal.
Okay. So when we look at the destroyers of root virtues, we look at the two, ignorance, or wrong view rather, and hatred. Wrong view is destroys the root of the root virtues, whereas anger destroys the fruition of our root virtue. So the effect of virtue is happiness. So it makes that result less and less and less when we become angry. So it destroys our root virtues in that way, in terms of they become smaller and smaller, so the results become less and less. So our happiness decreases and decreases, whereas the wrong view destroys the root of our root virtues. So this is how anger or hatred or aversion works as an opponent to our root virtues and what they provide us with in the future. Ditsum.
다宣주了的개바 동도 사비 개바 동도 사바이 신당 뜻이 죄라서 네 레지 강의뭐 컨트롤적인 좀 봐시스 컨트롤 그 개바 동도 사비 그산 종레스 개바 동도 사비 신당 뜻이 죄라서 네 레지 강의 컨트롤적인 좀 봐시스 오만 유발레 간시 제시 나라 트바이 신당 최장 개바자 사비 개주긴 되시스 Shanju Samba Long Laba Ina, Kaba Jasa because I'm doing the rest. Oman Jubal Yoterwa.
Kalpa Ja.
Kaba Ja.
And the Shunju Kalpa.
Shunju Kaba Ton Sab because I'm doing the rest. When Dragamuta.
Kalpa. So we find actually two differing points that are made. In the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, it says that one moment of anger destroys 1,000 eons of our root virtues, whereas in the introduction to the Middle Way, it says that anger destroys 100 eons of our virtues. So we find this point, the Leuka, the Umajupa, the Gari.
Omanjuba the Geshe Lharampa
Okay, so we find that there is this difference that's pointed out. Dene?
That Shanju Sambal Trina Keba Tondu Sab Gatan Jungres, Keba Jasab Gatan Jungani Shegota. Tinin Chebakares, Tibaina, and then Shanju Samba Maimbe, Shanju Sambal Long Lansona, Keba Tondu Sab Gatan Jungres. Keba Tondu Sab Gatan Jung said, Shanju Samba Maimbe, Shanju Sambal Truzona, Keba Tondu Sab Gatan Jungres, Shanju Samba Wome, Shanju Samba Tamal Truzona, Keba Jasab Gatan Jungres.
Okay, so the difference is as follows. If, for instance, one is not a bodhisattva and gets angry at someone who is a bodhisattva, then this destroys 1,000 eons of virtue. If one is a bodhisattva and gets angry at someone who is further along as a bodhisattva, then this destroys 100 eons. So this is why we have kind of the different points being made between the two, the Bodhisattva Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life and Chandrakirti's entrance to the Middle Way. I've almost found it.
What contre Gata Jung said to Katulot, Chenju Dan, Omanjuban Sunju Tenda.
So we can see that there is a slight difference between these two, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life and the Bodhicharya Avatara, Shantideva's. I'm sorry, there is a difference between, I'm trying to find this, I found it though. There is a difference between Chandrakirti's entrance to the Middle Way and Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And Chandrakirti says, indeed, all anger felt toward a bodhisattva destroys within an instant merits that arise through discipline and giving of 100 kalpas. No other evil is there similar to wrath. So again, this is referring to being one being angry who is already a bodhisattva at a bodhisattva. The 1,000 eons we find in the Bodhicharya Avatara is someone who is not a bodhisattva becoming angry at a bodhisattva. And that's right in the beginning of the Bodhicharya Avatara. I'm not going to get up, but that's what it says.
This is the Gita Sabana Jumbi, Dan Shedan in this Gita Sajabat Sukaloge, and then Mabazukan Su, the was Kondre Shunjule, Shedan Tabi Diba Man, and Shedan Tabi Diba Man, she son bataro, she don't have it diva mess. Control labio gaza diva, control labio what the gaza diva yo mares. What the gaza mamujun go, she son bataro, the isher. Tell us number tangi to come mewa. Zobalambi Bashaos. Kurolas Voda, Kantuchi to Zoba Gongors, Zoba. Zoba Gombaina, and the Zobin Zeshin, Ju Tambala, Pond on Lot on Lomi Shebane, Keba Juti, Woodene, Hamichet and Diba Sebanjurus, Zoba Gombaina, and Seshamal Zun Zebi Unguris, Zun Zeba Tunga, Zoba Gomajebi, Zoba Gomajeba, Zobin Zeshin, Ju Tambala, Pondance, and Jibutamba to Gabi Unguris. Pond the Lomi Shebala, Keban Jushin, Lud and Lumayame, and Dambajilla Suba, the Zul Keba Chagres, Zoba Gumbajebo, Zul Zebu Yungre, and Dajilla Subinazul Keba Yungres, Hamijana Dibasebal, Halgia, Malgia, Dibasebala Subpem Buyores.
The Kabir, the Delpa, the Charan Delpa, the Lamrim Chenmo.
The Lari Chim do it.
Kabir.
Shunjule, she don't have it diva me.
Lessa.
She is on Bataros.
Lessa.
The shed, and then Nabatanji to Komaeva, Zobalambetos, Zoba.
Lessa.
Zoba Gunguris, Zoba Gumba in the Zoo Debich Hagres,
Oh, okay.
Zobi Zeshin, Chu Tambala Pontan, Jibutamba to Neabungres. Ludo Lemisha Dangela Subal Keba Yungres, Hata Melchigres, Debatanures, Zobi Pemosundua.
That's so teaching.
Yeah.
So we can find, so I'll reread this again. Hostility is the enemy who brings suffering both in this and in future lives, and who destroys the accumulated roots of virtue. As engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, there is no sin like hatred. Therefore, never give hostility an opportunity, and make every effort to be patient. If hostility does not arise, you will be very happy, even in this lifetime. Engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, those who persistently defeat anger will be happy in this and in other lives. So we see that when one meditates upon patience, from patience comes beauty. So in future lives, we find many benefits that are presented in literature of being patient. So it says from patience comes beauty. From patience comes a thorough understanding of the Four Noble Truths and their attributes. From patience, one is able to abandon misdeeds and not react negatively. So there are many benefits that are presented about patience. So we should combat our aversion and hatred with patience in order to negate the experience we will have to endure if we do not. Decent.
Nabatanji to come here, Zoba Gunguris, Zoba Lambetos, Zoba Gungun and Penchubris, Zozebi Yunguris, Zobin Zeshin, Chu Tambala, Pontan, Jibutamba, the Nebi Yunguris, Pontan, Ludon Lumi Shebala, Keban Jushin, Dangela Subal Keba Yunguris, Ludon Lumi Jushin, Keban, and Ludon Lumi Jushin. Zobin Zeshin, Chu Tambala, Pontan, Ludon Lumi Sheba, Keba Jushin, T. Woodune, Lami Jetan. So we find
in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life that showing that if hostility or aversion Kabir. Okay. Okay, so it says that those who persistently defeat anger will be happy in this and in other lives. This means that when we defeat anger, when we engage in patience, which is how we abandon anger, we are able to have a rebirth in the future life in the gods, demigods, and humans, and able to have various forms of happiness and beauty as a result. So there's a question of where this quote is from. So we'll just say Rinpoche is saying entrance to the middle way. This says engaging in bodhisattva. So we find in the Lamrim Dudan, Lama Tsongkhapa's abbreviated stages of the path, where it compares patience to a jewel or ornament. It says, patience is the best adornment to wear for those with power, and the perfect aesthetic practice for those tormented by delusions. It is the high-soaring eagle as the enemy of the snake of anger, and is the thickest armor against the weapons of abusive language. Knowing this, the wise have accustomed themselves in various ways and forms to the armor of supreme patience. I, the yogi, have practiced just this way. If you would also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So here we see the benefits of patience and how it is the weapon against anger. And as a note, it's not the antidote, it's just a tool. It's not the direct antidote, because that's love, but it's a tool, a weapon against it. So this is, again, the benefits of patience. Hostility is the enemy who brings forth suffering, both in this and in future lives, and who destroys the accumulated roots of virtue. As engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, there is no sin like hatred. Therefore, never give hostility an opportunity, and make every effort to be patient. If hostility does not arise, you will be very happy in this lifetime. Those who persistently defeat anger will be happy in this and other lifetimes.
Okay.
That's Yula Deshini Kabiare 270 ane zo zebu yungure jibu damba de nebu yungure deba tan de che shamal hada mal chegres dajila su keba yungure koru de majunas okay
koru de majuna
okay
chendeni la ya che dedes koru mena chendeni la debu yungure koru mega do to ko makga chambre yungura ganji din de chunjongba kanji zhengzi chunzhongba nidang xiandu de kongzhu de nianbu dana ko kaba yina cendele jibu yunggore ce shima le ya jibu yunggore shi xuanzhu lu songba daros xuanzhu lu songba
so this is from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. De rason ge me ge le nga sap satanche de rason Okay, so that is number 2. And Rinpoche just read through it again, just showing how we have, by applying antidote, by applying patience, when we start to see anger arise, we can be happy in this and in other lifetimes, meaning in the future we have rebirth in the higher realms, and so forth. So now we get to number 3, which is attachment.
Less so. Shijin, Neba Jeje Sutumane, Decha Siba in Lasa, Suba in Las, Gimegi Le, Hansa Tanji, Koan Rubis, Gile, Megi Lelaten, Gile Latin Koal Jigre, Megi Lelaten Koal Jigrota, Koal Jigroa, on the Gile, Megi Leg, Koan Ruagi. Henji Shin Su the Lecharis and Lecha. Lecha Latene and the Gile and Rebu, the one doing Gure, Lecha Latene, Megile, Dugandu Gures, Lecha to go to Gimegi Lege, Lege, Rebu to be changed to the Charis. Gimegi Leg, Hansaba Tanji, Koanduba La, Tojen the Shagins, Koanduba La Neba Tojen the Shagente. Neba Jeje Sutumane, Decha Siba in Las, Decha the Jewars, Decha Geshe Lharampa, Gi Legend Rebo, and the one Rungre, Decha Legislation Latene, Megi Lege, and the Ku Dugan Rungres, Siba in La. Tea, de combat none, Yula Longshue Bi Jianji, Tu Runyaba Le, John Wes, and the Yula Longshue de Kan, Zume Zukan, Kansung, Kansung Nane, de Kan to Sukangalo, and the Yula Longshue Bi, and the Longshue Bi Zibi, Longshue Reja so Marbe, Reja is Jianji, and the Tua Nyaba Les, and the Zoo Dart Rorija, Mishi Zoo Tungurova, Zoo Tungala Dene, Chabachiwala Sobate Yungudua, Nai Datubala Dene, and the Chabala Sobache Yungudua, Tene what the Chishi Shebe Runuvale, Dosa Jigro, Luigi Shebe Reja Nubale, Dosa what the Smotere.
Tene Lopu Ninye Long Lague.
Lumini Long.
The Mamu, the Jigamari. Okay, attach.
Ling Hasaba no Koandubi, Tojen du Shijin, Neba Jesu Tonane, Dejares, Deja Siba in La, Dean de Campananas, Zume, Zukan Zumekan, De Kan Sungunane, De Kan to so. Yula Longshue Bibi Genji and Soa Duala Dene, Deja Jungre, Dungela Dene, Dungela Dene, Kundu Duba Yoba Maina, Deja Yoba Kalanjuro, Madu Yoba Maina, Shedan Yoba Saw Shiro Marbe, what to Sugi, Deja go what to Kundula Dene, you don't want to attend Deja. Mongwala then Kundujian Gures, Rebijan two Renyabale, John Yu, two Renyabale, John, and a Kundut on the Shatu Gures. Shetanagi, Madubadan, Duba Yoba Maya Madu and Dele de Gdua, Shetanagi, Madubadans, the Maduba the Solatene, and the Kundujian Guru, Madu Yoba Mayana, Shedan Yoba Kalanjuro. De la Chabi Yemi Moto Gonla Tubashades, and you don't want to let in Chabachigo, de la Mine, or the Yemi Momosan Tabaina de Chadunagres, Dubashade, Inichis, Zeda Lampo, Shema Letanya, Zeda Lampo, Shema Letanya, Drama Ngai,
like
Don't
so.
do Jigging Junda, the Gun Menga, Tigan Kala Ale,
Mi shake zoncha, nai shake zoncha,
Yeah.
Sapa. Virbe.
you never lose at all. Talwini, Iniji, Reda Lampuchi, Elephant Marbe,
Less so.
Shemanle Tang, Shemal is this din the Matu,
So do.
Tonkin to Shemal, Nyaji, push it. And the drama, and the back among doors. Nabungai, don't you de Jigging Juna, Kanshi Nana, Jigging Juna Kanshi Nana, Tadu Temba, Jishin Juma, Shezon Sauce, that can send a Nayamare,
Less so.
Zda Lampuchidon, Shamali Niji, Nyadason, Dramadan, Dramadan, Rida Chidon, Rida,
Lampoche, Bu,
Shamali,
Nya,
Nyaji,
and B.
Dramaredo, what the Nadaredo.
Okay.
Jigging Juna, Kanshi, Nana, Tadu Temba Jisher, Jumani, Shezon Sauce, or the Badule. Yeah.
Okay. So number 3, attachment, that is craving, strengthens all previously accumulated virtues and non-virtues and enhances their power to create cyclic existence. So that's the key, that it enhances the virtues' power to create cyclic existence, the non-virtues' power to create cyclic existence. For those in the desire realm, craving arises from feelings caused by the mental process of contact, which involves sensory objects. So when we look at sensory objects, so the eye consciousness apprehends form, ear consciousness apprehends a sound, tongue consciousness apprehends a taste, nose consciousness apprehends a smell, tactile consciousness has a feeling or a sensation. So eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body all have sensory objects that they experience, and those that they find attractive we are attached to, and those that are found to be unattracted we have aversion or anger towards. So it says, therefore you should meditate a great deal on what is internally or externally or internally unpleasant, and on the faults of being attached to desirable objects, and thereby overcome your craving and attachment. So this unpleasant is the ugliness. So the meditation upon ugliness or impurity becomes the antidote for attachment. So that's what that means here, this externally or internally unpleasant. That's ugliness. And on the faults of being attached to desirable objects, and thereby overcome your craving and attachment. And then it says, the great master Vasubandhu says, the 5 beings, deer, elephants, butterflies, fish, and bees, are overcome by 5 desirable objects. If a single desirable object can overwhelm each of them, why shouldn't all 5 destroy someone who constantly dwells on them? Dixon.
This one.
Yeah, Sampa.
Ta dana what the jiba dana jidin chuji nyebden go jidin chuji.
Cheek Jason.
Okay.
And then we find in the Nagarjuna's root wisdom text where it says, if that which is desired is present, then attachment is present. If the desirous is not a present, that which is desired is not present, then attachment is not present. So there has to be something that is desired, something one desires, for attachment to be present. Dixon.
O ta dana jiba dana ma jidin chuji nyebden do so da jidin chuji.
Ah.
Jidin chuji nyangji be o de so jidin chuji nyebden do so da.
So number 4 deals with the 8 worldly dharmas.
Yin yang zhong nyewa zhawa kawa nyeba da zhaba dang, nyeba da zhaba da tueba dang, Dewa Jela Sijin, Dewa Jela Sijin, Tedaki Dushu Jela, Himaga Yebula, Bede, Teyan, Shiku Yemi, Gumbadan, Chebrado, Chawajamba, Nedu Suna, Duba Juros, Jidin Chujirote, Chawamataba Jamba to Nedu Suma Yabu Yabu Jonsuna, Jidin Chuji Duyungres, Jidin Chuji. Jian Yong Yela, Jawan Jin Chuji, Susu Jul Jia Lil Habishade, Ka Lil Cabres, and Yong Yela, Jawa Gawa, Niebata, Nieba Shuna Gawa, Nieba Majuna Magawa, Nije, Traba Shuna Gawa, Traba Majuna Magawa, Jije, Tuba Shuna Gawa, Tuba Majuna Magawa, Truje, Dewa Shuna Gawa, Dewa Majuna Magawa, J. What in Jidin Chuji, what in Bare Jilla Sea Jeans, what the Jidin Chujilas, the Chachine, Tadaki, Doshu Jilla, Imaga Nebula, Betesa Ta Neba, Neba Shuna Gawa de la, and the Chapi on what the Nebude, Nebuten Ures, Neba Shuna Gawa, Magawala. And then what the young Nebutan Woods, Madra, Trabashuna Gawa, Trabamajuna Magawa, Tubashuna Gawa, Tubamajuna Magawa, Dawashuna Gawa, Dawamajuna Magawa, Jidin Chuji to what the Rendua. Sijin Tadaki Dushu Jilla, Tadaki Dushu Jilla, Tadaki Dushu Jilla, Yimaga, Nebula, Betis. Neba Shuna Gawa, Neba Majuna Magawa, or Dele Nebutan Wures, Traba Majuna Magawa, Nebutan Wures, Tuba Majun Magawa, Nebutan Wures, Doa Mebale, Nebutan Wures, Doju or the Marba. Jenny Alekale could sit on Tuba Chuji down.
So this is the 8 worldly dharmas. Moreover, the 4 cravings for gain, fame, praise, and pleasure, and the dislike of their 4 opposites are quick to occur and difficult to get rid of. Strive to remedy this and stop these 8 worldly concerns by meditating on the faults of cyclic existence in general and by cultivating the mindfulness of death in particular. Eliminate pride, as it is the chief obstacle to the development of the path in this lifetime and causes future rebirth as a servant and so forth. The way to do this is stated in Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. So here, when we look at what the 8 worldly concerns are, they are for gain, fame, praise, and happiness, and then disliking the opposite, disliking loss, disliking not being famous, disliking not being praised, disliking not being happy. So we have this attachment for this gain, fame, praise, and pleasure, and then we have this attachment to also this dislike of the opposite of it. So we very much dislike not gaining things, or it's sometimes translated as getting a gift or not getting a gift. I think that may even be more literal, receiving or not receiving a gift. We dislike not receiving something. We dislike when we don't have notoriety, when people don't know who we are. We dislike when we aren't praised. We dislike when we aren't happy. And we really like when we are given a gift. We really like when we're renowned, when we're famous. We really like when people praise us. We really like when we're happy. So these are those 8 worldly concerns, kind of put in another way. And this is what we need to remedy in order to understand that these are faults within cyclic existence and an incorrect view in reality. It says, stop these 8 worldly concerns by meditating on the faults of cyclic existence in general and by cultivating the mindfulness of death in particular. So we have shejak, generals and specifics. That's what's meant here. General about cyclic existence and then specifics about death. Khensur Rinpoche.
Ta nyeba shuna gawa de jun ai nyeba shuna gawa. Ana nga zu nyeba na tre suna shuna na gabu juna jun ayi de. Nyeba ma shuna magawa jun ayi. Tasu ngal nyeba duwa nyebo.
Nyebo gawa magawa?
Nyeba shuna gawa, nyeba ma shuna magawa nyirwa. Tani li nyeba tengu na ente dad. Nyeba shuna gawa de nyeba ayu. Nyeba ma shuna magawa de nyeba ayu. Ane traba shuna gawa de nyeba ayu. Traba ma shuna magawa de nyeba ayu. Teba shuna gawa. Teba ma shuna de nyeba ayu mu. Dewa shuna gawa. Dewa mu de nyeba ayu mu es. Jiden chuji nyeba gomba nyeba tenba de seguro da. Nyeba shuna gawa chuji kol nyeba yoatas. Nyeba da. Ane ponja ai. Chul nyeba yobeshir. Nyeba yobeshir. What does tuba tenduwa da.
So then nga the nyebo shira gapuldu.
Nyeba shuna.
Ducha yimba, mayimba, the donda?
The nyeba shuna gote. Nyeba skar ngasu kala namadan tre suna. Gabu yunguro baten da. Nyeba shuna gawa.
Well, so.
Hotel nyeba ayumu. Gawa de la decha yimbi gawa da. Decha ma yimbi gawa ni ja gu men do ha. Nyeba shuna gawas. Pichi chaba men do chaba.
Okay.
Nyeba ma shuna magawa pichi kontro ni jin do na.
Nyebo gawa damagawa. Okay.
Nyeba shuna gawa, nyeba.
So then they chuchen yajar surlam.
Kala nama tente nyeba shung suna, gabi yogro.
Okay, you get
Gawa
food
de
you
la
like.
decha yimbi gawa dan, ma yimbi gawa ni ayus. Sanji le matula suwa pyoba yina sanji aga.
Gapuldu. Ale yene ducha yomari. Okay. Tuchena. So gongo mepichi.
O tente sandan kutu ji lau kutu ta.
So then there, when we look at this, it says, and the four cravings for gain. So gain, Rinpoche is saying being given a gift, being given something. So for instance, if we like being given food, for instance, does this fall always necessarily under the 8 worldly dharmas? Because there is liking getting something, and then there's disliking getting something that can happen as well when we get something we don't want. If the Buddha is given an offering of a flower and he likes that, then is this attachment? So this is something we have to look at. It says cravings for gain, so getting something. So we like, that means liking getting something. So if you like getting something, does that mean you're attached to getting something? And then the example of the Buddha being given a flower offering. The Buddha likes being given an offering, but the Buddha doesn't have craving or attachment. So this is what we need to think about when we think about what this actually means.
O tente sandan nama de jen ja kabudu, jiden chuji de nyeba ja kutu.
So when we look at these 8 worldly concerns and the application of an antidote, we need to look at what we're trying to get rid of, what we're applying an antidote to exactly. Because it's not the, as a translator's note, it's not the liking of it, it's the emotion behind the liking, the attachment to the liking. Okay. And
Chudil nyeba yona, chudil ponja yimba achao.
so is it an abandonment? Is it
Chudil nyeba yona, ponja yimba chabata, ma chabatas. Chudil nyeba yona, ponja yimba chabata, ngotu jenle jawa shamago kumba yimba, jetan tiyi nyeba yi, shesung beyajirs. Jetan tiyi nyeba yi, jetan se takadu de, tele nyeba yona, te ponja yingo sung warta. Ngotu jen jetan tiyi nyeba yis.
So it says in order for there to be an antidote, there has to be an abandonment, something to be abandoned. So in order for there to be an antidote, there has to be something to be abandoned. I'm trying to figure out why this connects, though. Anyway, it says this, in order for there to be an antidote, there has to be something to be abandoned. Then the Tetsi Yanjar Suralan? The Ponja de Lapsar.
Chudil nyeba yona.
Yeah, Lapsar.
Chudil nyeba yona, chudil ponja yingo res.
So if
Goba tal, ngotu jenle jetan tiyi nyeba yi, shesung beyajirs.
Okay, lap did data lap.
the song yoda.
Okay, lapsar.
Jeta, then what the Katulta, then Kazakakawa Ledunda. Jiden Chuji Katuro, Jiden Chuji, what the Zugal Jiden Chuji de la Gawa de la nearby Ayumu. Nearby years, Gawa de la Decha Dubi Gawa and Miami Gawani Juarez. And then the child do go to the woman.
So is liking applying an antidote attachment, and then we realize that there are two kinds of liking: liking with attachment and liking without attachment. Okay.
Si jin te da ki do shu la, e ma ga ye bu la be des. Tene do shu sana, ne ba shu na ga, ne ba ma ju na ma ga. Chaba majuno magawa, teba majuno magawa, doa majuno magawa turule, what the Niemita no Gungures, Nebula Magayu, Nebula Betes, Magayu Nebula Bete, tell us she kui Niemi Gumba dance, she don't kui Niemi San Tambatan, Chebara to Chow Mataba Neto, Chow Mataba Net so much Gumba ina. And the Jiden Chuji Dunuгрес, Dubanjuros, what about the Jibare?
Okay, so this number 4, it says, moreover, the 4 cravings for getting something or not liking not getting something. I'm just going to read it like this because that's the way that it's, and fame and not liking not being famous, praise and not liking not being praised, and pleasure and not liking not having pleasure, which falls under, and the dislike for their 4 opposites, are quick to occur and difficult to get rid of. Strive to remedy this and stop these 8 worldly concerns by meditating on the faults of cyclic existence in general, by cultivating the mindfulness of death in particular. So here, it's saying the faults of, if we go back, they're the general faults of cyclic existence that have been outlined previously here. And then it says, cultivating the mindfulness of death in particular. So there's a specific death and impermanence. It's death and impermanence, really. Mindfulness of death, but it's death and impermanence. So the specifics about death and impermanence, that thinking about the specifics of death and impermanence serves as an antidote to the 8 worldly concerns. Decent. Now we're in number 5.
Ngaba de ngaje da tsun bonsu risa ngaba de ma ngaje da tsun ne bu bonsu teng du so re ta ngaje de ne bu
Leso
ngaje ne de la ji gi zu ngaje de wo de ngaje de la ju le je a ge wo ge chu res ngaje de yo ba ina solan jolan tolan golan tu so ju le je a ge wo de Gi tu dres what ngaje de na tholon julche tu kabre jolan tholon golan tu julche kabres ngaje der laji giji chu shema tela suba chewa shema le nami de ne trayu la suba ten chewa ngabal chun gres shema tela subi jwe yimbe pon de sa ngaje chebe chewa ina ne la jula chi ge chamre ku la jula chi at ka de re chewa shema tela suba tela chewa mebal chen gres chi jwe yimbe ne ngaje sa do jin pon gres ngaje nya bu gon pon chu ne shidin les pon chu do de ngomolo du shidin le song dos na naga chidu te ta te jin do le no dagar shale mandi she tata yang to semba ne ti nye bi go ne jaman joro she son bataros ngaje ne bu tama de lo de tata ge du shula yi maga yi nye bu la bete shi ku nye mi gong ba da chaba de chwa ma ta ba ten ba la su ba wo de su ngalo ane guna ngaje dugres shedin le ngobulu du zondos shedin le naga chedu te dan te jin do le na dag shele mandi she tata yang do Sembane, the Nebugun Japan Juros, the Nebugun Nebutana Kwashi, Nemi Gumbatan, Chabat Cho Mataba Jambaina, and what the Najet Dunugas on Wizard. Sheson Bataro, Dembatan Conchutan, Lendela Nabaniana, Dembatan, Dembanita, Dembajetan, Conju Sontan, Drudan, Dembanatan, Sangila, Conju Sons, Drudans and Dembani Marbe, Dembanatas, Dembaje, Conju Sons, Conju Sonje, Lendi. Lendi la ngabanyena lendi la ngabanyena ne tsunji chaji menjungos ane tyoda de ba da kudu de ba da ane dogen de ba kudu de ba goden la de ane kudu son tsul ngaba ya ba nya ba ina ane ngaje yongo mares tsul ya ba jangur son de sare
Drutan Demba, the Nudajan.
Drudan de ngoju drudan san de ba ni re de ba na da sana ane de ba jirwa drudan de ba na dan sanji la su konju son le chi ke de ba ya ba jinwa la de ba ni da de ba je tu ya ba she gu da de ba ni da de ba je tu ya ba she na ane sanji konju chu konju gni konju sul yi chi ya ba yong la jirwa da wo de ten go sare.
Okay, so number 5. I read further before, but number 5 is eliminate pride. That's where it begins. Eliminate pride, as it is the chief obstacle to the development of the path in this lifetime and causes future rebirth as a servant and so forth. The way to do this is stated in the friendly letter, Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. If you reflect again and again, just as I have not transcended illness, aging, death, and loss of the pleasant, so my karma and its results are my own doing. You will overcome arrogance because you will be applying its remedy. So here it says eliminate pride as the chief obstacle to the development of the path in this lifetime and causes future rebirth. So the path in this lifetime is referring to those 5 paths: the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, the path of no more learning. So those 5 paths have obstacles if you have pride, and you cannot actually achieve any among those 5 with the presence of this. So it's necessary to get rid of this arrogance in order to achieve any type of path. And it says once you have certainty about the truths are referring to the 4 noble truths and the 2 truths. So we find in the Abhisam Alamkara where it says established truths, and these are referring to the 4 noble truths and the 2 truths. And it says the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Karma and its effects and the affliction of doubt will not arise. So once you've thoroughly analyzed karma and its results and the 4 noble truths and the 2 truths, then the certainty about these things will be there, and you'll understand. Your arrogance will decline because of your understanding of death and impermanence and so forth. And that's a karma sum yure.
Okay,
so we're going to end here because there's a lot more information. We only have a few minutes, and we'll get back to it next time. Everyone listened so well. Once again, thank you very much. So concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Maybe we could just record the thing like right now. Anyway, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. That pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Geshe Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denrolang. Today, Rinpoche almost completed the section on the medium scope called Ascertaining the Nature of the Path Leading to Liberation. We're in the 8th category, according to Jayan Sheba's commentary, and Rinpoche gave a very thorough analysis of the topic of the highest higher training in ethics.